Let the house be in order. Stand as we are led in prayer this afternoon. The gentleman from Tallahatchie, Representative Reynolds, will introduce our guest minister and then remain standing for our pledge. Gentlemen.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, today we remember Holocaust Remembrance Day, when 6 million Jews and others perished in Europe, and today is the day that we commemorate this. Today we are honored to have Isabella Gadberry, who is the president of the Hillel Foundation at the University of Mississippi. Hillel has 850 chapters throughout the United States. It's the largest Jewish student organization. And we also have Malachi Barthas, who is a sophomore at Ole Miss, and he is treasurer of that organization. We also have Mr. Marty Greenberg, who is grandfather to Isabella Gadberry, and whose mother came from a little place called Kiev. You can pronounce it many different ways, Kiev. But at any rate, in the Ukraine, of course it was Russia, Ukraine, but we say Ukraine, and it is Ukraine, and it will be Ukraine. And we're also glad to have Sherry Gadberry, who is Isabella's mother. I want us all to think about the sacredness that was of today, and as we remember those who perished due to inhumanity of man and evil. Let us never, never, never forget the evil that was done and our responsibility to prevent it in the future. So we turn over for prayer and reflection to Isabella and Malachi at this time. Isabella.
Thank you, Representative Reynolds and members of the legislature, for giving us the opportunity to be here today. My name is Isabella Gadberry, and I am the president of the University of Mississippi Hillel, the Jewish student organization at Ole Miss. With me today is Malachi Barthas, who is also an officer on the Hillel board. I am from Germantown, Tennessee, and Malachi's from New Orleans, but Mississippi is our adopted home, and we are honored to be here today. We are grateful for the opportunity to help commemorate the liberation of Auschwitz. Tomorrow, January 27th, is the 78th anniversary of the liberation of the Nazis' largest death camp, where 1.1 million people were murdered, including nearly 1 million Jews.
January 27th is known throughout the world as Holocaust Remembrance Day. It is a day for honoring the 6 million Jewish victims of the Holocaust, as well as the millions of other victims of Nazism. It is a day of remembrance and a day of education. The imperatives to remember and to study the Holocaust are more important now than ever. In 2005, at the anniversary of the liberation, approximately 1,500 survivors of Auschwitz gathered at the site of the death camp to share their stories. Just a few years ago, in 2020, barely 200 Auschwitz survivors returned to the site for the same anniversary. Many of them were in their 90s and some were close to 100 years old. Yet they still made the trip from all corners of the world in order to testify to the horrors they witnessed. As the numbers of survivors dwindles, it is our responsibility to carry on the sacred responsibilities of education and remembrance.
The writer and Holocaust survivor Primo Levi has famously said, "It happened, therefore it can happen again. It can happen everywhere." With remembrance and education comes an additional responsibility, the responsibility to fight persecution wherever it happens.
Commemorating the Holocaust is, therefore, more than a solemn act of remembrance. It is an opportunity. In the words of Rabbi Bruce Lustig, commemoration is, quote, an opportunity for us to remember the suffering that was and the efforts that were made to put an end to such suffering. And it's a call to conscience today in our world to make sure that we aren't the silent ones standing by, contributing to the suffering of others.
I close with a prayer for the departed, fully compassionate God on high, to our 6 million brothers and sisters murdered because they were Jews. Grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings. Secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours. They will rest in peace. Amen.
Open machine, Madam Clerk. Close the machine, Madam Clerk.
There's a quorum present, Mr. Speaker.
We will have the reading of the journal. The gentleman from Rankin, Representative Weathersby, moves we dispense with the reading of the journal. All in favor say aye. Opposed no. The ayes have it. Report of select committees.
We have none, Mr. Speaker.
Report of standing committees.
We have reports on the calendar, Mr. Speaker.
Introduction of bills and constitutional amendments. The gentleman from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Items of consent to dispense with the reading of the introduction.
Is there objection? Hearing none, we will proceed in that manner, sir. Thank you. Resolutions, petitions, memorials, and other papers.
We have none, Mr. Speaker.
Introduction of guests and visitors. Lady from Madison, Ms. Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to introduce the doctor of the day, Dr. Stephen Hammock, family medicine, president-elect of Mississippi Academy of Family Physicians and Mississippi St. Dominic's Family Medical Clinic in Madison, Mississippi. And then with him is Dr. Beauty, B-E-A-U-T-I. I love your name. Please welcome our doctors of the day. Thank you.
Gentleman from Neshoba, Mr. Bounds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, in the North Gallery, if you will, please help make welcome the father and grandfather of one of my pages. My page is Walker White. Welcome his dad, William White, and his grandfather, Roy White, in the North Gallery.
Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Crudup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, if you can, help me welcome my good friend and church member, Miss Sharon Fleming. She's in the South Gallery.
Lady from Panola, Miss Jackson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, if you would please help me make welcome the Women in Lead. It's a statewide leadership organization sponsored by One Voice, Women Foundation, and the Mississippi Black Women Roundtable. Let's please help make them welcome.
Gentleman from Sunflower, Mr. Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House. In our South Gallery, we have members of Teen Health Mississippi. They have been here. I'm sure they've talked with many of you all advocating for sexual education in their high schools. They are from across the state of Mississippi, and many of these young people who hail from Sunflower County in the Delta. And one of those leaders up there is my baby girl, Reagan. Let's make them welcome today.
Lady from Hines, Miss Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to help me make welcome a friend. She's wearing a beautiful pink blouse today, and her name, that's Miss Flemings. Would you please stand, Miss Flemings? Thank you.
Gentleman from Prentice, Mr. Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to have my vote changed from nay to yay on item number 9, yesterday's calendar, House Bill 626.
Is there objection? Don't see any. Record gentleman's vote. Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Banks.
Thank you, gentlemen. I don't know if she's been introduced or not. I stepped out to get some coffee. The young lady in the South Gallery, Miss Sharon Momon, would you stand? We know you from your previous marriage and everything else, so thank you. You're not a stranger to this Capitol.
That's two for her, gentlemen. Lady from Hines, Ms. Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, please help me welcome a very good friend of mine, my constituent, longtime friend, Dr. Sophia Marsha Chapman.
I would direct y'all's attention to the North Gallery. I've got a good friend here today visiting the Capitol, informing interested lawmakers about foreign land ownership. A good friend of mine from Kosciuszko, retired attorney, rabbit hunter, and rock and roll singer, Mr. Bubba Pettit in the North Gallery. Thank you for being here, Bubba. I believe at this time we have a special guest. If the Sergeant at Arms would bring in our special guest. Y'all give y'all's attention to the gentleman from Harrison. He's going to introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a lot of you know, the lady behind me is our interim superintendent of education. I think most of you know her. Most of you have worked with her over the last few months. Although she is the interim superintendent right now, the reality of it is she is the lady behind the curtain before this time. Dr. Benton has worked in many areas of education over the years. I think what makes her so special is that she started from the bottom. She started as a teacher assistant. She worked her way up. She was a superintendent of the blind and deaf for a while. She worked at MDE. She's worked throughout the school districts. She understands every aspect of the education system. She's somebody that was needed in Mississippi. She was the lady in the position at the right time. I'm going to tell you, we've made a lot of strides in education over the years. And a lot of those programs that we put in was implemented by Dr. Benton, such as the Early Childhood Collaboration Act, Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standards, the Literacy-Based Promotion Act. It speaks volumes about her. We hear a lot of the people who's on the news and out front on these programs. But Dr. Benton is truly the lady behind the curtain. What really saddens me is she is going to leave. She is going to retire at the end of the month. She's going to be missed. I kind of call her the Sean Tyndall of driver license. She and you as legislatures, there's no doubt over the years you have had called about licensures problems over at MDE. In her short time over there, she's been working on that. She's revamping the program, and that will move forward as she leaves. So just let you know, that is an issue that she has addressed and is working on. The part about me is I've got to know her a little better over the last few months. And from a personal standpoint, I can tell you she is someone who cares, truly cares about students and the education system in Mississippi. I had 2 texts. I left my phone back there. I was actually going to read them. I had 2 texts just this morning from superintendents of education telling me how Dr. Benton really cared about the kids, and it was not about politics. I think she was a fresh of breath air there. She's been there, don't get me wrong, but to be able to see what she's accomplished in this short time, and of all her accomplishments that I am so proud of, so happy for the state, the most important to me is that I look at her as a friend. I truly do, Dr. Benton. And we have a proclamation here, a resolution here for you, and it has all the accolades, everything in it about your accomplishments and all. I'm not going to read it and bore anybody with it, but it's pretty impressive here. With that being said, I want to thank you, and we have her children here, Jessica, and God, how embarrassing is this? Jessica and Matthew are with her two of her 5 children, is that correct? 2 of her 5 children are here today, and I know they're proud of their mother, as we are. And again, Dr. Benton, from the bottom of my heart, from this legislature, I thank you for what you have done and what you will continue to do. And I'm going to say, I'm going to miss you, but I'm not going to miss you. You're still going to be around. We're still going to stay in touch. And I just hate to see you losing. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
And would love for you to say a couple words if you would.
Say a few words. Very few words. Anybody that knows me knows I'm not an
She's the
emotional-
lady behind the curtain, but she's going to speak.
No, I just want to say thank you. I've spent all but 6 years of my life in a public classroom in Mississippi, either as a student and a child growing up on 5th Street and 58th Avenue in Meridian, Mississippi, or as a college student, community college, IHL, or in the workforce. And I just want to thank you for your support of public education in Mississippi. Every child deserves the opportunities that I was given. The sacrifices my parents made to make sure, working multiple jobs to make sure my brother and I had a quality education, I don't ever take for granted. But you're behind the curtains too. I thank you for the support you give to educators across our state. They are working hard every day on behalf of our students, and you are the champions behind the scene. Thank you for the support you give us, and thank you personally for the support you've given me. Thank you.
Here, we're going to. No, could we have everyone on the education committee come up to take a picture, please?
We'll suspend business real quick for the pic. we will go to the calendar. Chairman from Rules, you're recognized.
Can y'all hear me? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for unanimous consent to change the 2022 to 2023 on yesterday's bill that we passed, HC 31. There was a typo. If we could get that done right now.
Gentleman's requested unanimous consent to change the date in the resolution regarding state of the state from yesterday. Is there objection? Don't see any, gentlemen. You seem to be generating controversy real quick. Gentleman from Adams, Mr. Johnson, for what purpose?
Mr. Speaker, for an introduction out of order, if I may.
You're recognized.
Ladies and gentlemen in the North Gallery, a wonderful young lady who is a hard worker in the community, but she's also an excellent chef, my constituent, Miss Jarita King. Would you please stand and help her make her welcome? Thank you.
Welcome, lady. Welcome. Gentlemen, you have anything else?
Yes, sir. I need to have a rules meeting right now, if at all possible.
Gentlemen's called a rules meeting in the rules room. If you're a member, proceed that way. Chairman from Appropriations, does he wish to take up the bill?
Mr. Speaker, I'd ask for immediate release on that particular.
Is there objection? Thank you, gentlemen. Chairman of Appropriations, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies in the House, let's go to today's calendar, the appropriations calendar. Bring up item number 1. This will be House Bill 603, and I recognize gentleman from Jackson, Mr. Barton, to discuss the bill.
Gentleman from Jackson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 603 is a bill we pass every year during this time of the session. All we're doing here is opening some code sections related to the budget process, and these are all code sections that we'll use later as we go through the budget.
Gentlemen, let me stop you. I believe it's a committee sub.
Yes.
So you want to call up the committee sub?
Yeah, call up the committee sub.
Gentleman calls up the committee sub in lieu of the bill. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. We're on a committee sub, gentlemen. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The code sections we're going to be bringing forward is the code section that deals with the budget process itself, the governor's budget, the working state cash stabilization fund, the 2% set aside, how we deal with excess general fund allocation, the capital expense fund, Gulf Coast Restoration Fund, and the section that deals at the end where we actually ask the state fiscal officers to start making some transfers for the 2024 budget. And we do have a reverse repeater, and that's an explanation of the bill.
You yield for questions, gentlemen?
Yes.
Lady from Jones, Miss
Scott.
Lady from Scott.
Jones.
Lady from Jones, Miss Scott.
There you go, gentlemen. Will the gentleman yield?
Certainly.
Okay, gentlemen, can you tell us how much monies do we have available to the state as of today, total dollars that we can appropriate if we chose to?
How much money total is available for appropriation? I don't know the answer to that. There is no money in this bill.
Okay, I know, but you're talking about, we are discussing the budget, right? And you are discussing transfers of dollars, right?
There's approximately $3.9 billion.
Okay, all right. And because don't have my book, it's downstairs. Can you tell the House now, what exactly did the Budget Committee adopt that we were going to appropriate during this appropriations process of that how many billion?
It's $3.9 billion available for budgeting.
And the Budget Committee adopted how much for appropriation?
6.3 out of the general fund, 6.3 billion out of the general fund.
Okay, 6.3. And will you ask my final question, would you ask the analyst, how much do we have in the rainy day fund?
It's full. It's full.
How much?
A little over $500 million.
Excuse me?
Over 500 million. 580,
And then what is the 2% amount?
150.
Okay, and then the last thing, so we can have a little clarity about how much money we have available. Did the economists tell the budget committee, and the analysts might be able to answer this, what our fiscal status would be going forward, 24, 25, 26? I didn't see it in the budget book when I was looking, and normally that is contained in the document. Can we get that information from the analysts? If they don't have it now, can you get that for us, those projections?
You're talking about the projections, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Don't see any further questions.
Move final passage.
Gentleman moves final passage. Open machine, Madam Clerk. If you favor the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 113 yeas, 2 nays, the bill passes. Next item, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to item number 2. This is House Bill 604. Bring it up, make the usual motion, adopt committee sub.
Gentleman moves that the committee sub be adopted for consideration in lieu of the original bill. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We're on the committee sub, gentlemen.
Recognize the gentleman from Pike to discuss the bill.
Gentlemen, we're getting the cart before the horse a little bit. You called the bill up and made the usual motion that the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read a third time and placed on final passage. All those in favor of that procedure indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentleman's called up the committee sub and it be adopted for consideration in lieu of the original bill. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Okay, gentlemen, we're on the committee sub now properly. You may proceed, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, this is House Bill 604, and it's simply making some technical amendments to the ARPA programs that we passed last session. A couple quick points to the bill. It does allow DFA to use money to administer the programs, which was important. We also passed in the Public Health Committee last week House Bill 518, which changes the way that we funded the Innovative Grant Program. So we may this year use capital expense money. We may use non-ARPA money, so we need to make those changes. We also amended a change to fund the sheriff's raise. The sheriffs, as you know, they got some pay, and this was above their cap, so we need to make sure that we were allowed for them to receive those funds. And we do have a reverse repealer in this piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker. That is the explanation of the bill.
Don't see any questions, gentlemen.
I move final adoption, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from Harrison, for what purpose do you seek recognition? He passes. Gentlemen's move final passage on the bill. Open the machine, Madam Clerk. If you're in favor of the bill, indicate by voting aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 114 yeas, 4 nays, the bill passes. Next item, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies in the House, go to item number 3. This would be House Bill 763. Recognize the gentleman from Pearl River to handle the bill.
Gentlemen, you make the usual motion.
I do.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read the third time and placed on final passage. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentlemen, you've got a committee sub.
Mr. Speaker, I also move the committee sub be adopted.
Gentleman moves the committee sub be adopted for consideration in lieu of the original bill. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. You may proceed, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is 2 amendments to some Gulf Coast restoration funds that were sent out last year. The first change in this will be taking some money from the assault landing strip at Stennis Airport, reallocating it to the technology part for a total of about $7 million there. Second change will be moving some money to Heritage Spring Water in Wiggins, Mississippi. That total of that is about $600,000. That's my explanation.
Don't see any questions, gentlemen. You move final passage. Gentleman moves final passage. Open the machine, Madam Clerk. If you're in favor of the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 110 yeas, 6 nays, the bill passes. Gentleman from Jackson, for what purpose? He passes. You may continue, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's go to item number 4. This would be House Bill 1088. Recognize a gentlelady from Amite to discuss the bill.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make the usual motion on House Bill 1088.
The gentlelady calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read the third time, and placed on final passage. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Lady, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 1088 is our transfer bill. As you know, we usually, at the beginning of the session, always do a transfer bill and appropriations just so we'll have a vehicle as we near the end of the session. There are 31 sections in the bill. I'm going to just highlight a few of them. As you know, we're transferring money. For instance, in Section 1, we're transferring $1,488,628 from capital expense funds to the capital equipment replacement fund. A lot of the funds that we are transferring are either from capital expense or the education enhancement fund. And also in this bill, we are creating funds. For instance, in Section 6, we're creating the Capital Projects Fund, Archives and History. This is so that if there are any repair, renovation, construction projects undertaken at the Department of Archives and History, this money can be used for those projects. Section 8 is creating the Data System Replacement Fund. This is going to be at the Department of Human Services to upgrade and modernize the department's data system. We're creating the MSVA Veterans Home Capital Projects Fund in Section 10. Section 15, Section 16, creating the Early Learning Fund to defray expenses related to the Early Learning Evaluation Center. Section 18 creates the MSU Capital Projects Fund. Funds that are made available to this particular fund are going to be available to Mississippi State University to defray the expense of constructing, furnishing, and equipping a kinesiology and autism building, the High Performance Computing Center, and our Ballou Hall. Section 20 is creating the MUW Capital Projects Fund, and these funds are going to be made available to the Mississippi University for women to defray expenses associated with a nursing home expansion. Section 22 creates the ASU Capital Projects Fund. This is for Alcorn State University to renovate their Davie Whitney Complex and Wellness Center. Section 24 creates the JSU Capital Projects Fund. This is for the repair, renovation, and construction of a new residence hall at Jackson State. Section 26, creating the CTE Capital Projects Fund. These funds are going to be made available to the Mississippi Community College Board for construction, land acquisition, repairs, equipment upgrades, and renovation projects in career and technical education centers and school districts and community colleges. Section 28 creates the Capital Projects Fund, CCB. These funds are going to be made available to the Mississippi Community College Board for construction, land acquisition, repairs, equipment upgrades, and renovation projects for community colleges. Section 30 amends Section 27-103-127 to add the aeronautics, rails, and other programs at the Mississippi Department of Education. Section 31 simply says it's effective upon passage. I would just say here at this moment, members, ladies and gentlemen of the House, that this is not new money. There are not new funds in this bill. All we're doing is from the funds that have previously been appropriated for these particular universities, institutions, or agencies. We are creating a fund so that the funds that have already been appropriated can flow into this particular fund. There are some sections in this bill that correspond with the sections that I just noted that actually transfer the money into the fund that's created. And that's an explanation of the bill. Mr. Speaker, I'll yield for any questions.
Lady from Jones, Ms. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the lady yield?
Of course.
Thank you, lady. Now, I just want to be clear on what we're doing. These funds that we are creating are for entities and projects that we've already voted on in this capital, right?
Exactly.
And so I'm assuming that the time frame or something like that ran out. And why are we having to create these?
Well, we're having to create these funds just so, and this is the lady from Met. And we're having to create these funds so that it'll make it easier because, as you know, over the last few years, especially with the amount of money that has come into the state, we've distributed a lot of money. Say, for instance, for building dorms, for various projects throughout the state. And so just to make it a little bit cleaner in terms of, for instance, if it's DFA or the Treasury, whoever is going to be appropriating these monies, just to make sure that it's a cleaner process. For some of these funds, hold on a minute. I want to make sure, I'm going back, lady, if you'll bear with me to look at sections 1 through down to 7. No, these are with the exception of section 6. That's when you start your capital projects fund that I mentioned. But the first 5 sections are just what I said, either capital expense fund 2, maybe the capital equipment replacement fund, or the EEF to a particular fund.
Or archives and history.
Or archives and history, exactly. So it's just the typical mechanism that we always use at the beginning of the year, so we'll have something later on as we near sine die.
Okay, lady. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I don't see any further questions, lady.
Move final passage.
Lady moves final passage. Open machine, Madam Clerk. If you're in favor of the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 112 yeas, 7 nays, the bill passes. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Gentleman from Warren, Mr. Ford, for what purpose?
Introduction out of order.
You're recognized.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House in the North Gallery, we have a longtime personal friend of my family and former coach of Representative Oscar Denton's son. He is the head of the Mississippi the Mississippi Association of Coaches Executive Director, Coach Johnny Mims.
Welcome, Coach Mims. Good to have you with us today. Welcome. Mr. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, let's go to item 5. This would be House Bill 1187. Bring it up, make the usual motions.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read the 3rd time, and placed on final passage. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentlemen, you're recognized.
Recognize the gentleman from Montgomery to explain the bill.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues. Today, I bring to you House Bill 1187. This bill is in relationship to the Mississippi Real Estate Appraisers and the Mississippi Board of Real Estate Commission. And this comes to us as these two boards have gotten together and agreed to this. But this is simply separating the two. Currently, they coexist under one title and administered by the Board of Realty Commission, and each have always had separate budgets but maintained by one. This bill creates the Mississippi Real Estate Appraisers Licensing and Certification Board, and it's separating it from the Mississippi Real Estate Commission and becoming the appraisal board to provide for transition and functions and resources that will go into effect July the 1st of this year, 2023. The Mississippi Real Estate commission shall be fully functional and independent from the real estate commission, and it will require the state personnel board, the Department of Finance Administration, and also the Department of Information and Technology to provide support during this transition. It's basically taking two commissions that are currently under one roof and separating them into two separate buildings, and their budgets will stay with them. And that's an explanation of the bill, Mr. Speaker. I yield for any questions.
Gentleman from Smith, Mr. Tullis.
Will the gentleman yield?
Certainly.
Just so I'm clear, the commissioner for the real estate commission will not have any say-so concerning the appraisal commission,
That is correct.
They'll be totally independent of one another.
Independent of each other.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Don't see any further questions, gentlemen.
Final passage.
Gentleman moves final passage. Open machine, Madam Clerk. If you're in favor of the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 110 yeas, 5 nays, the bill passes. Next item, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, let's go to item number 6. That would be House Bill 1229. Bring it up, make the usual motion.
Gentleman calls the bill up, moves the rules be suspended, the bill considered engrossed, read the third time, and placed on final passage. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Gentlemen, you're recognized.
At this time, I'd like to recognize the lady from Mid to explain the bill.
Lady, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 1229 authorizes the Department of Public Safety to charge for services between other state agencies. A few years ago, if you remember, we passed a bill that just says no state agency will charge another state agency a fee, assessment, rent, etc. And then we did allow other state agencies to be able to charge. And so DPS wants the authority to be able to charge other state agencies for services, and that's just basically an explanation of the bill. There is already authority given, for instance, for IHL, for Mississippi Community Colleges, or any community or junior college. The Department of Education and DPS just wants to be added. That's an explanation, Mr. Speaker. I'll yield for any questions.
Don't see any questions, lady.
I move final passage.
Lady moves final passage. Open machine, Madam Clerk. If you're in favor of the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 115 yeas, 2 nays, the bill passes.
Appropriation, yield the floor.
Ways and Means passes. I believe the chairman of Judge B had an item he wanted to address.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I could skip down to item number 111, House Bill number 696, I'd like to make a motion to recommit that to the committee from whence it came.
Gentleman from Harrison, Mr. Hoolham, do you have a question?
Speaker, it was recognition out of order.
Let me dispense with this motion, and then you'll be recognized shortly. Thank you.
Roger.
I'm sorry I missed you early. Gentleman's made a motion to recommit. I don't see any questions. If you're in favor of that motion, indicate by saying aye. If you're opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion prevails. Any other chairman have an item they wish to take up? I believe the chairman of rules will be back to him now. Do we have a report from the committee, Madam Clerk? You may read the report.
Report of Committee on Rules, SCR 518, congratulates Starkville High School Yellow Jackets football team for winning the MHSAA Class 6-8 state title. Tie sufficient to be adopted.
You recognize, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's my explanation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something that needs to be presented tomorrow, and we just needed to get it out as soon as possible. Title sufficient to be adopted would be my motion.
Gentleman moves adoption of SCR 518. Open the machine, Madam Clerk. If you're in favor of the resolution, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 118 yeas, 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. Anything further, gentlemen?
Yes, sir. If we could go to the rules calendar and skip items 1 and 2 and go to item 3, I would ask that item 3 through 9 be taken up in a block.
The gentleman's gone back to the rules calendar for today, and he has requested that items 3 through 9, those are all House resolutions, be taken up in a block. Does anyone wish to set one of those items or any of those items aside? I don't see any, gentlemen. We'll proceed in that manner.
Title sufficient to be adopted.
Gentleman moves that these resolutions be adopted. If you're in favor of the resolutions, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Those resolutions will be adopted. Next item, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If we could go back to number 2, HR number 26. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Frida McKissick Bush, Honor Life and Legacy for her passing. It has been asked that we add the entire membership to this if there's no objection to that.
There's been a request to add the entire body as authors to this resolution. If you don't wish to be added, go by the clerk's office and be sure they know to not have your name on there. Otherwise, we will proceed in that matter. Anything further on this resolution, gentlemen?
No, sir. Title sufficient to be adopted.
Gentleman moves that House Resolution 26 be adopted. If you're in favor of that resolution, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolution's adopted. Anything further, gentlemen?
Mr. Speaker, I would ask that this be immediate release on all of these.
Is there objection? Seeing none, we will proceed with that. Okay, gentleman from Harrison, Mr. Hullam.
Mr. Speaker, recognition out of order. We have one of our constituents from Harrison County who's a strong community advocate and strong criminal justice advocate that's doing a lot of work in the Jackson area. Attorney Ms. Alicia Netterville in the North Gallery. Let's give her a hand, please.
Welcome. Announcements by the clerk's office. Announcement by the members. Gentleman from Rankin, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk has a few announcements.
You want a bill? Banking and Financial Services will meet after adjournment today in room 402. Accountability, Efficiency, and Transparency will meet after adjournment in 103. Ports, Harbors, and Airports will meet immediately after the Accountability, Efficiency, and Transparency meeting in room 103. Conservation and Water Resources will meet today 10 minutes after adjournment in 113. Judiciary will meet 20 minutes after adjournment in 113. Insurance will meet today at 3 in room 402.
Gentleman from Rankin, Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On today's calendar, the motion to reconsider item number 2, 787, after much deliberation with the learned gentleman from Choctaw and much heated debate, I think he has learned his lesson. I would like to withdraw my motion.
The gentleman withdraws his motion on the motion to reconsider. I don't see an objection. We'll proceed, gentlemen. Highly unusual. Gentleman from Jackson, Mr. Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On your desk today is a memorandum from the Local and Private Committee setting the deadline for bills to be drafted. It is March the 10th. Do not forget that. That's the chairman's deadline. The letter also outlines the things you have to have if you're not familiar with it to get your bill drafted. But the new date is March the 10th.
Thank you. Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Banks.
Mr. Speaker, question, clerk. Did I hear Joe Day? I know we heard Joe Day yesterday after the announcement, after adjournment.
Madam Clerk.
Joe Day will meet 20 minutes after adjournment today.
Okay, 20 minutes after. Thank you.
Gentleman from Jackson, Mr. Zuber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have a slight scheduling conflict, so insurance will meet at 3:30 instead of 3 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Gentleman from Itawamba, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Monday, January the 30th, the Mississippi Hospital Association will host their annual reception at the Westin starting at 5:30.
Don't see any other announcements. I'll recognize the gentleman from Oktibbeha for the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move this House stand adjourned until 9 a.m. in the morning.
Gentleman moves the House stand adjourned until 9 a.m. in the morning. If you in favor of the gentleman's motion, indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House is adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow.